The night was unnervingly silent, the kind of silence that pressed against your chest and refused to let go. At the edge of the dimly lit Millstone Mall parking lot, Officer Kane's K9, Rex, sat rigidly in front of the ATM, refusing every command, eyes locked on the machine's base as if it were alive. Security cameras flickered overhead, casting long, uneasy shadows. Kane's hand trembled on his flashlight as he crouched beside the dog. Something beneath the cold steel panel of the ATM was not supposed to be there. Something that would change the town forever. If you appreciate stories that grip the nerves and linger long after the final page, stay tuned for the full chapters, and consider liking or subscribing for updates. You won't want to miss what unfolds. The wind had a whisper that night, sifting through the empty Millstone Mall parking lot like a ghost moving unseen. Broken neon flickered above shuttered storefronts, humming faintly in the cold, and the asphalt smelled faintly of rain that hadn't come. Officer Kane's boots crunched over gravel as he followed Rex, his German shepherd, whose low growl vibrated in the silence. The K9 sat perfectly still, ears forward, eyes locked on the ATM tucked against the mall's side entrance. Its base was bolted to the concrete, inconspicuous, mundane, but Rex would not move. Not for the leash, not for commands, not even for the soft scratch behind the ears that usually broke his focus. Kane frowned, chest tight. He'd worked with Rex for 6 years, through late-night calls, drug busts, and high-speed chases. The dog had never hesitated before. Never refused. This was different. "Rex, what is it, boy?" Kane murmured, voice low, cautious. The wind stirred loose plastic wrappers across the lot, and the shadows seemed to shiver along the mall walls. His flashlight beam glinted off the ATM keypad, and for a moment, Kane imagined seeing something move beneath the machine. A beep rang from the mall security system, startling him. The place was supposed to be empty. Security cameras showed static on some monitors, a flicker here and there, and one camera had gone dark entirely. The usual late-night checks had reported no activity. Yet here, in the bitter silence, Rex had found something. The officer crouched, hand hovering near the bottom panel of the ATM. Cold metal scraped under his fingers as he tried to peer into the narrow opening beneath. A loose cable hung, and beneath it, the faint smell of decay hit him. His stomach clenched. You seeing this?" Kane whispered into his radio, though he already knew no one was coming tonight. Patrols didn't run this late, not in Millstone. Not on a Tuesday. As he studied the base, a metallic glint caught his eye. Something small, rectangular, partially wrapped in dirty plastic, tucked into the corner. He reached down carefully, fingertips brushing against the grime. Instantly, Rex's growl deepened, vibrating in Kane's chest. He froze. "What the hell?" Kane muttered. The object slipped from his fingers and clattered lightly against the asphalt. When he picked it up again, his flashlight revealed what it was. A tattered notebook, the edges smeared with something dark that gleamed faintly in the beam. Kane flipped it open. Inside were pages of cramped handwriting, illegible in parts, but the words that made sense sent a shiver down his spine. Dates. Names. Instructions. And beneath the final scrawled line on the last page, "She's under here. No one will find her." His stomach dropped. Rex lunged suddenly, barking sharply at the panel. Kane's eyes followed the dog's gaze, and the truth hit him like a physical blow. The panel wasn't just loose, it had been hiding something beneath the machine. Something that had been placed there deliberately, to be invisible. To be forgotten. The wind howled through the lot as Kane pried open the panel. His flashlight shook in his hand, shadows jumping across the walls. Beneath, wrapped in a filthy tarp, was a body, a girl, no older than 16, eyes closed, hair matted with dirt, the faintest trace of life extinguished long ago. Kane's knees buckled. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. Rex whined softly, nudging his shoulder, as if sharing the burden of the horror. The mall seemed to exhale around them, the darkness pressing closer, almost alive, whispering secrets of nights spent in silence, of crimes committed in empty corridors. Kane reached for his radio, but his fingers shook too violently to push the button. The line was silent anyway. He could feel the weight of Millstone pressing down on him, the town's hidden corners finally surfacing. For years, people had whispered about the abandoned mall, about missing teenagers, about the strange shadows that lingered in the parking lot after dark. Kane had never thought much of it, until now. Footsteps echoed behind him. A figure emerged from the darkness near the far side of the mall, a man in a maintenance uniform, carrying a flashlight. His face was hard to see, shadows masking his features, but there was something about the way he moved, too calm, too deliberate, that set Kane on edge. "You shouldn't be here," the man said, voice smooth, neutral, almost rehearsed. "I could say the same," Kane replied, hand tightening on Rex's leash. "You're the mall's security." "Maintenance." The man smiled faintly. "Call me Fletcher. I maintain things. Some things people shouldn't touch." His gaze flicked to the open panel, then back to Kane. "Did you find her?" Kane's heart pounded. There was no hesitation in Fletcher's voice, no shock. Just curiosity, and maybe something darker. Kane felt an old, familiar warning creep into his chest. He was being tested. "Yes," Kane said, voice low. "And I need to know who did this." Fletcher's eyes glinted in the dim light. "Do you really want to know? Some truths are heavier than you think. Some monsters wear faces you'd never suspect." The wind picked up again, scattering debris and plastic into the lot. Rex barked sharply, ears pinned back, growling at Fletcher. Kane realized in that moment that the night had only begun, and what he had uncovered was the tip of something much, much darker. As Kane dialed 911 with trembling fingers, the mall seemed to lean in closer, shadows stretching across walls and asphalt. Somewhere inside, doors creaked. Something moved. A faint whisper, almost too soft to hear, drifted on the cold night air. "You shouldn't have seen this." The dog refused to leave, eyes locked on the empty corridors beyond. Kane swallowed hard, bracing himself for what would come next, knowing this was far from over. And somewhere deep inside the mall, behind layers of secrets and silence, someone, or something, was watching. The emergency call felt hollow through the static of Kane's radio. Backup would take at least 20 minutes to arrive, and in Millstone, that was plenty of time for things to go wrong. He crouched beside Rex, staring down at the lifeless girl beneath the ATM panel, her dirty hair clinging to her pale cheeks. The wind whispered across the empty lot, lifting loose scraps of paper, echoes of conversations no one had heard, footsteps never traced. "You okay, Kane?" Fletcher's voice was calm, too calm, as he crouched a few steps away. His uniform smelled faintly of oil and bleach, the smell of someone who spent more nights with machinery than with people. Kane didn't answer immediately. He studied Fletcher carefully, noting the casual tilt of his head, the subtle way his eyes traced the shadows of the mall instead of the girl. "I need names," Kane said finally, voice tight. "Who else knows about this?" Fletcher's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Some of us have privileges. I maintain more than just pipes and wiring." He waved a hand vaguely toward the mall's interior. "Some doors are locked for a reason." Kane's stomach clenched. Something about Fletcher didn't fit. The way he spoke, the ease with which he mentioned secrets. There was no panic, no moral weight. Just calculation. Kane realized, sharply, that this man might not just know about the girl, he might be involved. Rex growled low, nudging Kane's hand. The dog's instincts were raw and unerring. It had sensed danger long before Kane understood it himself. Kane rubbed the dog's head, voice low. "Not now, boy. We need to think." The sound of distant tires scraping the lot announced the arrival of the first patrol car. Kane felt a small relief, quickly eclipsed by a rising dread. As officers approached, Kane instructed them to secure the perimeter, keeping eyes on the mall entrances and exits. He crouched again by the girl, noting the crude care in which she had been hidden beneath the ATM. Whoever did this had intended for her to remain undiscovered, for months, maybe longer. The first officer knelt beside him, eyes wide. How did no one notice?" "Isolation," Kane said flatly. "Empty mall at night. Most people don't come here after 10. And whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Fletcher's voice cut in softly, almost conversational. "Not everyone who disappears is noticed immediately. People slip through cracks." His gaze lingered on Kane for a beat too long. "Some people want to be missed." The implication hung in the air, heavy. Kane's gut told him Fletcher knew more than he was saying. Inside the mall, Shadows twisted across walls and broken storefronts. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting uneven pools of amber and red. Kane led a small team deeper into the building, Rex padding silently beside him, ears twitching at every creak and groan of the structure. The air smelled of damp concrete and old carpet, and every step seemed to echo endlessly. As they approached the corridor behind the ATM, Kane noticed signs of someone having been there recently. Scuff marks on the floor, footprints too small to be a maintenance worker's, and a faint stain of dried liquid. The evidence was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to send chills down his spine. "Who else has keys?" Kane asked Fletcher, carefully, testing. "Access is restricted," Fletcher said smoothly. "Security, management, and a few trusted employees. But some keys don't need to exist on a keyring." The words hit Kane like a slap. Hidden doors, forgotten corridors, spaces no one knew about. Could the girl have been trapped in one of them? Could someone have used the mall itself as a cage? Kane's mind raced, connecting the dots. The girl's disappearance, the empty mall, the lack of witnesses, the way Fletcher spoke as if he were part of some larger mechanism of secrecy. His instincts screamed that the worst was yet to come. Rex barked sharply, pulling Kane's attention back to the floor. There, under a loose tile near the corner of the corridor, was a faint glint, a small metal loop embedded in the concrete. Kane knelt, brushing away dust, revealing the outline of a hatch. It was crude but functional, clearly meant to be concealed. Fletcher stepped closer, voice calm, almost casual. "Ah, I see Rex has found it." Kane glared at him. "You know what's down there." "Some things," Fletcher said, shrugging, "are better left undiscovered." Kane's fingers itched toward his radio, toward his weapon. But he couldn't call for backup yet, not when Fletcher was here, not when whatever lay beneath the hatch could be moved or hidden in seconds. He had to descend himself, with Rex, into the unknown. He pulled the hatch open slowly. A musty, metallic stench rose from the darkness below. The staircase was narrow, concrete, unlit except for the thin beam of Kane's flashlight. He descended carefully, Rex padding behind him. The air grew colder, damper, carrying the faintest trace of decay. At the bottom, the corridor opened into a low-ceilinged room, barely wide enough for a single person to move without brushing the walls. And there, in the corner, Kane saw it, a collection of objects, carefully organized, grotesque in their familiarity. Personal items, backpacks, jackets, schoolbooks. Some folded neatly, some stained, some torn. Every item told a story. Every item hinted at months, maybe years, of planning, of obsession. And at the far end of the room, tied to a chair, was another girl, pale, bruised, but alive. Her eyes wide with fear, recognizing hope and terror in equal measure. Kane's stomach lurched. "Oh God!" The girl's voice was hoarse, whispering, "They said no one would find me. I thought I'd die down here." Rex growled, moving closer protectively. Kane quickly untied her, checking for injuries. She was weak, dehydrated, but breathing. Relief surged in him, tainted by anger and fear. Above, footsteps echoed. Fletcher's voice called down the hatch, calm, almost amused. "I see you found the collection." Kane's heart hammered. He realized in that instant that Fletcher was no mere caretaker. He was a gatekeeper, maybe even orchestrator. But to what end? The girl clung to Kane as they ascended, the weight of her ordeal pressing against his chest. He glanced at Fletcher one last time. The man's eyes were unreadable, a faint smile playing across his lips, a challenge. When Kane emerged into the parking lot, backup lights flashing, the world outside felt unreal, cold light, distant sirens, the hum of electricity. But Kane knew, deep down, that the nightmare was far from over. Fletcher had not been caught yet, and Millstone's darkest secrets were still buried in shadowed corners, waiting. And Kane knew one thing with absolute certainty: whoever controlled those shadows would strike again. The morning sun barely penetrated the Millstone Mall lot, the first hints of light scattering the lingering shadows from the previous night. Kane sat in his patrol car, Rex curled beside him, ears twitching at every distant sound. The girl they had rescued was safe for now, in the care of paramedics, but Kane couldn't shake the image of the hidden room beneath the ATM. The quiet of the town felt deceptive, like a thin veil hiding what still festered beneath. He glanced at Fletcher, who leaned against the side of the mall, arms crossed, as if he'd been waiting all morning for this moment. Fletcher's expression was unreadable. Calm, cold, calculated. Kane's instincts screamed danger, yet the man made no move, no sign of fleeing. "You don't understand," Kane said, stepping out of the car. "This isn't a game. Kids were trapped here, under this mall. 4 months. Fletcher's gaze drifted over the lot, following the weak sunlight as it traced broken glass and cracked asphalt. "Understand," he said softly. "I do understand. I understand that people are afraid of what they can't see. Some need to hide in the shadows to survive." Kane's hand hovered near his holster. "You're complicit. You knew about the girl beneath the ATM. Fletcher's lips curved into the faintest, unsettling smile. "I don't see it that way. I keep things organized. Things that society prefers to forget. I manage the inconveniences. You, Officer Kane, you seek closure. I provide containment. Different roles, same outcome." Rex growled low in Kane's direction, the warning vibrating through the crisp morning air. Kane realized, sharply, that this man did not see morality the way anyone else did. For Fletcher, people were objects, circumstances to be managed, problems to be hidden. A shout from the paramedics brought Kane back. The girl they rescued had spoken, offering a name that sent a shiver down his spine. Her captor, her tormentor, had a name that matched Fletcher's. Kane's blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed betrayal. "You," Kane hissed, his eyes narrowing. "You did this. You put her down there." Fletcher's smile widened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Do you know what it's like to be responsible for things no one else can handle? To maintain order in a world that doesn't notice the cracks until someone falls through? You're welcome to judge me. But I didn't kill her. I just maintained the balance." The words were a venomous paradox. Kane felt fury surge, anger at the cruelty, at the indifference, at the cold precision. But before he could act, Fletcher turned and walked slowly toward the shadows of the mall's far wing, vanishing into the half-lit corridors. Kane hesitated, then pursued, heart-pounding, Rex at his side. The interior of the mall was silent, oppressive. Broken lights flickered overhead, casting long, wavering shadows across debris-littered floors. Kane's flashlight swept across corners and abandoned kiosks, each shadow threatening to conceal movement. Every echo of his footsteps amplified, every creak of the floor sounded like the approach of something unseen. Then he saw it, a door, half-hidden, slightly ajar, the faintest sound of movement within. Kane approached cautiously, signaling Rex to stay close. Inside was another room, smaller, a workspace of sorts, with monitors, papers, and photographs pinned to the walls. The images were horrifying: surveillance of children, plans for abductions, meticulous notes on schedules and vulnerabilities. Kane's stomach churned. Fletcher hadn't just hidden one girl. He had been collecting information, building control over fear and secrecy. And then he heard it, footsteps behind him. Kane spun. Fletcher stood there, calm, arms raised slightly in mock surrender. "You should leave now," Fletcher said softly, "or you'll be the one becoming part of the collection." Kane didn't flinch. "It ends tonight." A tense standoff ensued, a psychological chess match in the dark, oppressive space. Fletcher made a subtle motion toward a panel behind him, a hidden door. Kane's instincts screamed trap. He signaled Rex, whose low growl deepened, hackles raised. In a blur, Fletcher lunged, not with strength but with cunning, attempting to manipulate Kane into opening the panel. Rex intercepted with a ferocity born of instinct and loyalty. Fletcher faltered, stumbling backward. Kane drew his weapon, voice steady but sharp. "It's over, Fletcher. Step away." For a heartbeat, Fletcher's calm eyes flickered with something human. Fear, maybe regret, but it was gone almost instantly, replaced by the mask he always wore. And then, in a final calculated movement, he pressed a hidden button. A wall panel slid silently, revealing a dark corridor leading downward. Kane realized the horror. Fletcher had one final card, a backup plan to vanish and continue his operations elsewhere. Kane hesitated only for a moment, then advanced, carefully blocking the corridor, weapon raised, forcing Fletcher to surrender or retreat. But Fletcher, recognizing defeat, finally raised his hands, a bitter acceptance in his posture. The long, tense silence broke with the sound of sirens approaching. Backup had arrived. Kane breathed, relief mixing with rage. Outside, the rescued girl clung to a paramedic, sobbing but alive. Kane watched as she was escorted safely away, her ordeal finally ending. He felt the weight of months, years, of neglect, of shadows kept hidden, pressing against him. But he knew that at least one person, one small life, was saved, and that mattered. Fletcher was taken into custody, his calm demeanor never fully breaking. But Kane knew that monsters like him were rarely fully understood, rarely truly stopped. What he had done was enough to protect Millstone for now. Enough to honor the lives of those lost and those rescued. Later, Kane sat alone in his patrol car, Rex resting his head on Kane's knee. The wind whispered through the lot, carrying remnants of shadows that had lingered for too long. Kane closed his eyes, feeling exhaustion and the lingering unease of knowing the darkness wasn't gone, just contained. The girl's face, pale but alive, lingered in his thoughts. Her fear, her relief, the fragile trust she placed in him, it weighed heavily. Kane realized that heroism wasn't about glory, but about presence, showing up, refusing to turn away, holding the line when others would not. And as the first sunlight broke over the mall, scattering the last of the night's shadows, Kane knew that Millstone had survived the night. That some secrets could be unearthed, some horrors confronted, and some trust, fragile, tenuous, human trust, could still be honored. Rex nudged his hand. Kane looked down, voice quiet. "We did what we had to, boy. We did what we had to." And for the first time since the night began, Kane felt a stillness, a fragile peace, as the town slowly awoke, oblivious to the darkness that had been hiding in plain sight.